Shabbat Shalom. This is the brother Ra'aya coming at you with another Shabbat lesson. But before I get started, as always, I'm going to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule and teach well. In peace and salutations to you sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure unto the end. Shabbat Shalom. And I'm going to start this Shabbat lesson off with 2 Esdras chapter 6, verse 22. And suddenly shall the sown places appear unsown, the full storehouses shall suddenly be found empty. And those sown places appearing unsown are these different farmers' croplands not being sown with a sufficient amount of crops due to a whole host of issues, adverse weather events like droughts, floodings, high diesel prices, which are keeping them from planting as much crops as they want to, etc., etc. And the full storehouses suddenly being found empty are these different places like Walmart, Rouse's, Publix, Kroger's, wherever you live. Hey, their store shelves becoming emptier and emptier due to supply chain disruptions, as well as these issues going on with these farmers and their croplands. And I can speak for myself. The Walmart around where I live, every time I go, the store shelves just get emptier and emptier. And it's getting to the point to where they're having to try to hide the empty store shelves by just completely rearranging whole sections in that Walmart. And then also at a grocery store chain down here known as Rouse's, I've been noticing the same thing. You may see a whole aisle where it's just a front row of barbecue sauce, but behind it, it's just paper plates filling up the empty space to make it seem like these shortages aren't as bad as they are. But they are as bad as that, and they're only going to intensify as we get closer and closer to all hell breaking loose during Jacob's trouble. Famines are coming. People fighting each other to get their hands on whatever food's left is coming, cannibalism, all this. And I opened up the video with this verse to preface a video from the Epic Economist's YouTube channel titled, "As Walmart Shelves Get Barer, Insiders Are Warning That Supplies Will Get Tighter in the Weeks Ahead." Shelves getting barer, supplies getting tighter. And suddenly shall the full storehouses be found empty. And what we're going to see in this video is pretty much what I just said in regards to that 2 Esdras 6 verse 22, with farmers' croplands being affected by adverse weather events and these store shelves becoming emptier and emptier. We truly are living in the times of the end of this current age of the rulership of the heathen nations, chiefly of the biblical Edomites, who are known as these so-called white people today, the second coming of Yahweh Shai Hamashiach, whom the world ignorantly refers to as so-called Jesus Christ, to put the final nail in the coffin of Esau, Edom, and these heathens' rulership, as well as to save the elect of the nation of Israel, and then the ushering in of the kingdom of heaven under the true children of Israel, who are known as you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans today. Hey, so now more than ever, to you sincere Akim out there, you should have all 10 toes down in this truth, pushing this word as hard as you possibly can to make your calling and election sure, and to have that protective hedge of Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai over you, so we can be saved from these calamities of Jacob's trouble, the famines, martial law, ultimately those nuclear missiles, as they quickly come our way. But this is a fair use copyright disclaimer. I do not own any of the footage in this video, nor do I stand to gain from it monetarily. It is simply for educational purposes. And I'm pretty much going to play this entire video, and then certain points I want to make and precepts I want to bring out, I'll pause the video and bring them out accordingly.
If you have been to your local supermarket lately, you probably have noticed empty shelves where some of the most popular grocery staples should be. This year, a series of food retailers, including big names such as Walmart and Target, are experiencing shortages of a wide range of products as a result of supply chain disruptions, higher costs of fuel and fertilizers, and extreme weather events. Now, industry insiders are telling us that the outlook for agricultural production in the U.S. is extremely grim. No one really knows for sure when the supply of many of these everyday essentials will bulk back up, and while shortages persist, prices continue to climb higher, with some painful increases that range from 10 to over 40% just over the past 12 months. American farmers and ranchers have done everything in their power to keep the nation's supermarket shelves supplied over the past 2 years, are now on the edge of desperation. They are seeing their crops being destroyed by the ongoing drought. Their livestock headcounts have shrunk by the millions, and they're also dealing with some of the most expensive prices of critical materials and energy ever recorded. Much of the food that has been grown in the past.
And these are all plagues of punishment that Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai is bringing onto the United States of America, which is biblically known as Babylon the Great, as well as spiritual Sodom and Egypt as pursuant to Revelation 11 verse 8. We're living in the twilight hours of the United States of America being the top nation on the planet Earth. The Most High strategically hitting it in its key sectors to break it down, and then he's ultimately going to wipe this place off the face of the earth with 200 million nuclear missiles, which are going to turn it into the biblical lake of fire from sea to shining sea, and then a desolate, uninhabitable wasteland afterwards. But as the epic economist just said, adverse weather events, as well as other factors, are really hampering U.S. farmers' ability to plant a sufficient amount of crops or just keep their livelihood going, one of those being a drought, which is spoken about in the scriptures. This is Jeremiah chapter 50, verse 38, and the book of Jeremiah chapter 50 is dealing with Babylon the Great, that virgin daughter of Babylon, the United States of America's ultimate destruction. A drought is upon her waters, and they shall be dried up. And we're clearly seeing in the western half of the United States of America that a mega drought that hasn't been seen in, can't remember the exact time, but hundreds of years is taking place as we speak. And farmers aren't able to get a sufficient amount of water to water their crops, which in turn is what? Leading to a crop loss, and also farmers having to sell a lot of their livestock because they just don't have the water to feed them, and also due to the drought, their lands aren't able to bring up enough grass or other nutrients that those cattle can sustain themselves off of. For it is the land of graven images, and they are mad upon their idols. And the United States of America, Babylon the Great, is the #1 idolatrous country on the face of the earth. This country's ways and practices pretty much take all the different ancient gods and idols and ways of the past heathen rulerships and has melded them into this conglomeration of madness. Just look at what this place pushes. Like feminism, woman worship, the Queen of Heaven worship. It pushes the alphabet lifestyle beginning with LG. They've got a whole host of different religions in this country from Buddhism, Islam, bullshit Christianity. You can go and make up your own religion. This place has a lot of they out and out show symbolisms of past rulerships. Like look at Egypt. You've got the pyramid with the all-seeing eye on the back of your $1 bill. The Washington Monument is an obelisk. Hey, abortion. Well, yeah, that word. Hopefully, I don't get this video doesn't get taken down for it, but that is very prevalent in the United States of America. That and contraception, which is the same in ancient Egypt. Hey, this place just pushes that do as thou wilt lifestyle, and Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai is finally visiting and judging this place for its wicked practices. And then on top of all that, this is the nation that has the majority of the children of Israel in captivity, and day in, day out constantly afflicts the children of Israel, just as ancient Egypt did. But this is 2nd Esdras chapter 15, verses 11 to 13. But I will bring them with a mighty hand and a stretched out arm, and smite Egypt with plagues. And this isn't speaking about ancient Egypt under the Hamites, or the so-called Africans, Mizraim. This is talking about that modern-day spiritual Egypt, as pursuant to Revelation 11, verse 8, under the modern-day spiritual Egyptians, these Edomites, or so-called white people, as before, and will destroy all the land thereof. And we can clearly see that Egypt is being smitten with plagues, floods, droughts, earthquakes, inflation, which is going to lead to hyperinflation, an economic collapse which is coming, etc., etc. Egypt shall mourn, and the foundation of it shall be smitten with the plague and punishment that the Most High shall bring upon it. They that till the ground shall mourn. And who are those that till the ground? Farmers. And we can clearly see that these farmers are mourning, for their seeds shall fail through the blasting and hail, and with the fearful constellation, all these different plagues that Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai is striking them with. Droughts, floods, you've got Mormon crickets and locusts eating up croplands, high diesel prices keeping them from planting a sufficient amount of crops. The list goes on. And hey, like I said at the beginning of the video, things haven't gotten as bad as they're going to get. We're just in the beginning stages of it right now. The beginning of sorrows, as it says in Matthew chapter 24, verse 8.
Last year won't ever make it into our food system, and this means we're about to see shelves get even barer at our local stores in the coming weeks and months. That's what we're going to expose in today's video. Before moving on, please support us by leaving a thumbs up in this video, subscribe to our channel so you stay up to date with the most important news. Now, food industry insiders are warning us that soon supplies are going to get even tighter all over the country. In the last year, millions of U.S. farmers and ranchers witnessed the worst planting and harvesting conditions seen this century. And they're being forced to watch the decimation of their crops and the decline of their chicken and beef cow herds as a myriad of problems piles up. Missouri farmer Darvin Bentledge, a 66-year-old fourth-generation cattle and grain farmer, highlighted that the extreme weather that he and his neighbors are facing has taken them on a roller coaster ride. Earlier this year, it rained so much he had to delay planting. Then the drought came, destroying countless acres of crops. That was a rough start, Bentledge said in an interview with Forbes. In my 50 years of farming, it never went from being so wet to so dry. It's the fastest I've ever seen. He added, "Pray for rain. Sometimes it seems like it can't get any worse." At the same time, Nebraska rancher Trent Lewis, who hails from 6 generations of farmers dating back to the 1830s, notes that soaring diesel prices are making things harder for farmers during this year's harvest season. Since 2000, Lewis has been educating his community about the food system, where our food comes from, and who's producing it, how shortages could become a reality, and why disruptions are popping up everywhere. Conservation is about producing more with less, Lewis told the Epoch Times. In 1900, it took 10 acres of land to produce enough food to feed one person per year. In 2021, it takes less than a third of an acre. That's all thanks to diesel power, he said. But with diesel prices nearing $5 a gallon, smaller food producers who can't afford the higher costs are deciding to abandon some of their crops instead, something that has been keeping Lewis up all night. He isn't worried about his family. Raising cattle and pigs for almost 100 years means believes that his household will have enough food on their table despite the challenges plaguing the nation's food system. What really scares him, he says, is the prospect that the other 329.5 million Americans, especially those living in cities like New York and Los Angeles, will eventually find out that there ain't enough food supplies to feed everyone. Food insecurity is a grave national security danger, he warns. Today, 24 million U.S. households do not have enough to eat on a regular basis. And unfortunately, that number is set to shoot up as more issues impact our domestic production. In 20...
And as inflation leads to hyperinflation, food prices and prices for other goods continue to rise, and there's a energy crisis and just a cost of living crisis in general, on top of these food shelves and store shelves just getting emptier and emptier. Do you think people, especially in the United States of America, who have been coddled and been lazy their whole lives and have that microwave mentality that I gotta have it right now, are just gonna sit back and take it, especially when their bellies are touching their backs or they have to watch their loved ones starve to death? Of course not. You're about to see an animalistic nature in people out here. Hey, the people that used to be so-called good friends or family members or whatever are going to fight against each other like enemies to get their hands on whatever goods are left, not just at these stores, but it's eventually going to get to the point to where people are going to be breaking into each other's houses and putting each other to death and forcefully taking their stuff. Let me go back to that 2nd Esdras chapter 6. I'm going to jump down to 24. At that time shall friends fight one against another like enemies. And what would be one of the main instances to cause so-called good friends, best friends, to fight against each other like enemies? Food shortages, famines, and the earth shall stand in fear that with those that dwell therein. The springs of the fountain shall stand still, and in 3 hours they shall not run. This is 2nd Esdras chapter 15, verse 19. A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword. And the modern day sword, especially in the United States of America, is the gun. But people are going to be using a whole host of weapons in that day. Literal swords, knives, bats, chains, brass knuckles, machetes, you name it, and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread, food shortages, the full storehouses being found empty, famines, and for great tribulation.
In 2022, nearly 3/4 of U.S. farmers saw a reduction in harvest yields due to the dry weather, with 37% saying they were tilling over fields that won't produce anything because of a lack of water. That's a 13% increase from last year. According to Farm Bureau data, 1/3 of orchard farmers nationwide and 50% in California said they were ripping up trees, an increase from 17% in 2021. Ranchers are also having to make some very tough decisions. A new report revealed that 2/3 of the country's ranchers are selling off animals or selling off birds, with average herd sizes dropping by 36%. The biggest herd declines are in Texas, collapsing 50%, New Mexico, collapsing 43%, and Oregon, 41%, a clear example of the wide geographic distribution of the distress. Even more worryingly, as hot temperatures wreak havoc on California's agricultural land, which produces most of America's food, including 3/4 of its beef cattle and 70% of its vegetables, fruits, and nuts. Agricultural producers are having to go farther to find water, and higher fuel costs are forcing them to pay more to pump what isn't coming from the sky. Nebraska farmer Kevin Fulton said that predicament is still better than what's happened to the land that's not irrigated. The pastures are burning up. Fulton, a 28-year veteran of farming the land he inherited, exposed to Forbes. He continued, "Some aren't going to produce anything, and the yields have been drastically reduced. This wears on you mentally. You're working hard to keep up with the irrigation. It's depressing. These kinds of things sometimes push farmers over the edge," he added. The blistering heat is also contributing to the dissemination of agricultural pests that devour key food crops, the University of Washington warned. A 3.6 Fahrenheit increase in temperatures can boost the number and appetite of insects, causing them to destroy 50% more wheat and 30% more maize, the report says. The rising heat stress is having a major impact on yields.
Rising heat temperatures leading to an increase in crop pests eating up whatever crops are left. And best believe some of the main ones out there, these locusts. They got some Mormon crickets over in the western half of the United States right now, messing up a lot of crops. This is Ecclesiastes in the Bible, chapter 12, verse 5. "Also, when they shall be afraid of that which is high, and fears shall be in the way, and the almond tree shall flourish, and the grasshopper shall be a burden, and a desire shall fail, because man goeth to his long home, and the mourners go about the streets." And what would cause grasshoppers, locusts, to be a burden? And them eating up the already sparse crops out there. And where it says, "and the almond tree shall flourish," a precept for this is Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 11 to 12. "Moreover, the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Jeremiah, what seest thou? And I said, I see a rod of an almond tree. Then said Yahweh unto me, Thou hast well seen, for I will hasten my word to perform it." So that almond tree flourishing is a symbolic for the Most High hastening to perform his words, bring about these biblical prophecies, these destructions, plagues, judgments, and punishments onto you people, especially in the United States of America, for all the wickedness you've been committing.
With harvests of staple crops significantly down this year, which is likely to push the cost of grains such as corn and oats even higher. Those working at the very root of the U.S. food supply chain can't catch a breath. They're also facing labor shortages, surging processing costs, and transportation delays. Meanwhile, food retailers are specifically warning that current conditions are likely to prevent the industry from supplying enough supplies to the general population. Egg Innovation CEO John Brunquell recently alerted that an uptick in demand coinciding with labor, freight, and vendor issues may soon hamper grocery supplies. Brunquell noted that businesses are already operating at 100% capacity, but that still may not solve the problem. He stressed, if that trend continues, it's going to put us in a challenging situation with meeting the demand. In August, the price of beef rose nearly 21% year over year, while pork and chicken increased 16.8% and 9.2% respectively, and eggs jumped by nearly 40%, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. On social media, a flood of posts on Facebook and Twitter exposed that even the world's biggest retailer is not immune to shortages and supply chain challenges. In a series of short videos, shoppers exposed empty meat and produce aisles at Walmart. Shelves were left bare in both sections, and a sign reading, "Due to circumstances beyond our control, we are experiencing a delay in receiving some fresh food products," was taped to the produce aisle. A number of our Walmart supercenters are experiencing some recent internal supply chain challenges affecting the meat category, resulting in product shortages, according to a statement from the company. Of course, empty shelves are being spotted in many other supermarkets across the United States, but the fact that the largest and most well-resourced big box retailer on the planet is having supply issues should be a wake-up call for all of us. That is a very ominous sign for U.S. consumers, the retail sector, and the broader U.S. economy. If anyone was able to navigate the current supply chain challenges, it should have been the big box retailer. And yet, a couple of weeks ago, the company canceled billions in orders as their earnings dramatically dropped in the last quarter. The trouble is, as consumer demand continues to rise, smaller retailers are much less equipped to absorb that demand. Target was one of the first companies to signal choppy waters ahead. The company has already seen its profit margin decline twice this year as the global supply chain crisis resulted in some severe inventory imbalances. The same happened with Kohl's, Gap, Bath & Body Works, and even the e-commerce company Shopify. Many other retailers are expected to get caught in the crosshairs as more supply disruptions emerge in the coming months. In other words, if the shelves are already bare in your area, they may be staying that way for a while. This is a global crisis, and the U.S. is right at the center of it. On Tuesday, the UN food chief warned that the world is facing a perfect storm on top of a perfect storm. He urged leaders to address the fertilizer supply shortage right now in order to prevent widespread food shortages next year. Otherwise, there's gonna be chaos all over the world. World Food Program Executive Director David Beasley said in an Associated Press interview, "There are millions of people in 45 countries knocking on famine's door," Beasley emphasized. "If we don't reach these people, you will have famine, starvation, destabilization of nations unlike anything we saw in 2007 to 2008 and 2011, and you will have mass migration. It's a perfect storm on top of a perfect storm, and with the fertilizer crisis we're facing right now, with droughts, we're facing a food pricing problem in 2022. This created havoc around the world. If we don't get on top of this quickly, and I don't mean next year, I mean this year, you will have a food availability problem in 2023, and that's gonna be hell." Sadly, he's right on target. In the past several months, uprisings due to food shortage or threats of potential shortage have boiled over into revolts in many countries, including in Europe. It may be a matter of time before things start going south here in America. At this point,
And things are going to go south in America. It's going to be the worst here, because this is the main place of judgment for the Most High. This is the only nation on the face of the earth that's going to be completely wiped off the face of the earth. And as the epic economist just said, there are already revolts taking place across the planet, and they're only going to intensify as these food shortages continue, this energy crisis continues, and a whole host of other factors afflicting people's daily lives ramp up. This is 2 Esdras chapter 9. I'm going to start at verse 1. "He answered me then and said, Measure thou the time diligently in itself, and when thou seest part of the signs past which I have told thee before, then shalt thou understand that it is the very same time wherein the Highest will begin to visit the world which he made. And we're living in the times right now of the Highest beginning to visit the world which he made, to judge you people for all the iniquity you've been committing. Therefore, when there shall be seen earthquakes, which are happening damn near daily all across the planet, I believe you just had some major ones in Indonesia, Mexico, I think around California as well, and uproars of the people in the world, a people rioting due to government malfeasance, food shortages, high prices, a cost of living crisis. Then shalt thou well understand that the Most High spake of those things from the days that were before thee, even from the beginning. For like as all that is made in the world hath a beginning and an end, and the end is manifest, and the end is manifesting right before our very eyes.
We all want the supply chain crisis to be resolved, inflation to go back down, and life to return to the way that it used to be. Unfortunately, none of those things are gonna happen. We must start bracing for a future where scarcity is the new normal. Everyone in the industry is telling us to prepare for the worst, so it would be unwise to ignore their alerts. Thank you very much for watching.
So as we can clearly see, we truly are living in the times of the end, the last days, really the last seconds of the last days, before the end of this current age of the rulership of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites, Yahushua HaMashiach's second coming, and the ushering in of the kingdom of heaven. This is Matthew chapter 24, and I'm going to start at verse 6. And these are some of the end time signs that Yahushua HaMashiach told his disciples to look for, to know that they were living in those times. And ye shall hear of wars, the war in Ukraine, the Syrian civil war, the war in Afghanistan, the war in Iraq, the Libyan civil war, and rumors of wars. Israel going to war against Iran, China going to war against Taiwan, World War III, nuclear war. What did we just see President Putin do? Enact a partial mobilization of 300,000 reserves to be sent to Ukraine. And I just saw a video from the Canadian prepper where he said the US government is buying up potassium iodide pills, which are used to help fight radiation sickness, radiation poison, a rumor of war, nuclear war, World War III, which all are going to take place. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. We're not quite at the end. The end is going to truly come after the charagma, the Markophtbeast in Revelation chapter 13, verses 16 to 18, which is the RFID/NFC MICROCHIPIMPLANT is mandatorily implemented. And after that takes place, there's going to be that hour of temptation, and then World War III is truly going to kick off in the Valley of Jehoshaphat over in that Middle Eastern region, the War of Armageddon. Nuclear missiles are going to start flying to the ends of the earth, 200 million of which are going to hit the United States of America, and Yahushua HaMashiach is going to make his second coming to save his elect and make war against these heathens, chiefly the Edomites. For nation shall rise against nation, different races of people fighting each other in racial skirmishes, and we can clearly see that these racial tensions are bubbling up, about to bubble over the pot in the United States of America. Kingdom against kingdom, the US and NATO against Russia, China against Taiwan, Israel against Iran, and there shall be famines, which, as we can clearly see from that clip from the Epic Economist, these food shortages, famines are coming. And David Beasley, the head of the UN World Food Group, said to expect famines of biblical proportions. And I think he also said, as of right now, around 90 to 93 million people are already on the verge of starvation, and that soon hundreds of millions of people are going to be on the verge of starvation globally. And pestilences, what was that took place during 2019 to 2021? The C19 pestilence. Then of course you've got monkeypox, polio popping up again, Marburg, and whatever else is coming. And earthquakes in diverse places, which, like I just said, are taking place damn near daily all across the globe. All these are the beginning of sorrows. Hey, all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. We're just in the beginning stages of these judgments of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai taking place, and they're only going to intensify until Yahweh Shai Hamashayat cracks those clouds to save his elect and put an end to this current age of the rulership of the heathen nations. But hey, while we still have the ability to do so, to you sincere Akim out there that are diligently preaching the words of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, continue to do so. Continue to put up these video epistles, as well as continue to go out onto the highways and byways, making your bodies a living sacrifice. We're literally seeing our faith be vindicated right before us, with all these things that the Most High said would take place are taking place. It's no longer tarrying, as it says in Habakkuk chapter 2. I'm going to read verses 1 to 3. I will stand upon my watch, and I will set me upon the tower, and I will watch to see what he will say unto me, and what I shall answer when I am reproved. And Yahweh answered me and said, write the vision, and make it plain upon tables, which is exactly what the men of the Lord, the prophets of the Most High, chiefly through GMS or Great Millstone, as well as the brothers that come in the spirit of GMS are doing, standing upon their watch, writing down the vision and making it plain upon tables, watching the news and reading the scriptures, and then filtering the news through the scriptures to go out and prophesy on the highways and byways, as well as put up these video epistles, that he may run that readeth it. When the hopeful elect hear these words and see these things taking place, they're going to get their spirits right and come back to their power, Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, and take themselves out of the ways of this world, so they can hope to be of that elect number and be saved from these calamities of Jacob's trouble. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak, and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not tarry. An Apostle Tahar is deemed 2022 to be the year of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, turning things up. And we can clearly see that things have turned up exponentially, and they're going to continue to turn up. And it's very exciting to see how 2023 is going to play out. But we can clearly see that these prophecies are no longer tarrying. They're starting to ramp up and intensify and come to their fulfillment that much more quickly. But before I close out this lesson, to you sincere Akim and Akwath out there, hey, we aren't supposed to be afraid when we see these things. Talks of food shortages and famines, World War III, nuclear war, inflation, economic collapse, any of that. We should be rejoicing and hoping these things happen that much more quickly, because it just goes to show us that our salvation is nearer than when we believed, and the Most High is going to take care of us during these famines. These famines and food shortages and cannibalism which is coming, and people invading one another to steal their goods and put them to death, and that's for the wicked of our people and these heathen nations as the judgment and punishment from the Most High. But I'm going to close it out in Isaiah 65 verse 13. Therefore, thus saith the Lord Yahweh, behold, my servants shall eat, those that are doing the will of the Most High, but ye shall be hungry. The wicked of our people globally, and 2/3 in the United States of America that aren't doing the will of the Most High, but want to live like these heathens. They're rebellious and hard-headed. Hey, there's a recompense for that quickly coming. Behold, my servant shall drink, but ye shall be thirsty. Behold, my servant shall rejoice, but ye shall be ashamed. The servants of the Most High are going to rejoice when they see all these calamities taking place, but they are able to get through it through the will of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. But as for the wicked of our people that don't want to take heed to the words of the prophets, you're going to be ashamed in that day, because all these calamities are going to cleave unto you like a garment of horror, and you're going to have to get it how you live, and that getting's not going to be good. Behold, my servant shall sing for joy, but ye shall cry for sorrow of heart, and shall howl for vexation of spirit. Point blank, period. So that's it with this Shabbat lesson. And with this Shabbat lesson, I hope you sincere Akim and Akwath were edified. Just keep strong. As we can clearly see, we're almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babal, Kwam Yasharala, and until next time, Shabbat Shalom.